Welcome to Game Over Montreal. Kate, can you give me a test 1, 2?
Test one, two.
Perfect. We are on. Game Over Montreal is live now. Apologies for the technical issues, folks. We'll hopefully get everyone moved over here as soon as possible and start the show. I'm just going to throw it to Kay, and she's going to start the show as if everything was normal and we didn't have any issues on the technical side. So, Kay, the Montreal Canadiens have won. They've won one game, something we didn't expect them to be able to do. How do you feel? Oh, now you're muted again, Kay. I don't know what's going on, but is it coming through on the stream? Nope. For some reason, your Discord is muted, unfortunately. I don't know why Discord is being a jerk to us right now, but worst case scenario, I will get Kay on a Zoom meeting and we will try that. But as it
How's
stands,
this?
oh, I think I heard you. I heard you. We're good. We're good.
Okay, I had to use my other mic. I will troubleshoot this later.
Okay, we will figure it out. We'll find a way to fix this. For folks, now we should be good to go for this game. Apparently, the Montreal Canadiens finally show up, and we don't. That's the way it works. Discord has to make things tough on us, and OBS as well. That's the way it works when you're doing things on your own and trying to figure things out for the first time. So, obviously, the Montreal Canadiens better effort today. It was a wild one. How many goals in this one? 11?
A lot of goals. That's the amount. That's the amount I got for you. Am I looking fine on stream? Sorry, I don't know what
Yes.
I just did. I might have done something.
You
Okay.
are you are looking good. You got the Barbie shirt
Okay.
on. You're looking
Yes, I do.
strong. You're looking ready.
No, I mean, as in, am I? Is the stream correct?
Yes. Everything looks pretty good, I think. We're good to
Okay.
go. So let's talk a little bit about this game.
Sure. So to start with, matinee games are not generally like this. This is not what I expect. Um, so I'm really pleasantly pleased. I think this is what this would if they'd lost this one, this would have been 7 in a row, but they didn't make it that far. So I'm really excited about this. I'm really excited to see not just the win, but how they won. While we loved the Brendan Gallagher goals, I think I'm a lot more encouraged to see the top line stepping up. Um, so yeah, that's kind of how I'm feeling. I'm happy. I am happy on an afternoon, so I appreciate that. So I don't have to go to bed.
Yeah, I hear that. It's one of those situations where I know I was watching along on Blue Sky because that's the new thing. In case anybody hasn't noticed, Twitter is dead, or at least dying very rapidly. And Trzek says Game Over Montreal Tech adopted the Habs defensive concepts. It felt that way for a minute there. We were having a time trying to get everything working for whatever reason. Sometimes when we go live, OBS is like, "What if all the things that you already checked don't work, and we're just gonna mess it up?" And that's what happens. But yeah, obviously the Habs top players actually showing up today was a really nice bonus. I saw Scott Matla on Blue Sky calling the Anderson Dvorak Gallagher line the Bergevin legacy line, which is phenomenal. We need to make that a thing. Maybe even put it on
Yes.
a shirt. I love it, but maybe just say Berge instead of Bergevin on the shirt because it's just easier. Uh, but
Also, I don't
having
want to wear around his name.
yeah, exactly. Uh, but I gotta say, seeing Suzuki pop 2 tonight, seeing Slavkovsky get 3 assists, it's a different feeling than having a decent performance where it's all guys who aren't necessarily part of the future doing it.
Yeah, I would agree. It's just really encouraging. I was never worried about Nick Suzuki because I tend not to be because I think we've had a large enough body of work at this point that um it's not something that like is a big concern for me. The only thing I was worried about was a possible injury, but I honestly was always on the side of it's not because the mistakes I was seeing were mental.
Yes.
Um so seeing Nick Suzuki have a big game was really important. Slav obviously had a great game. Also really important. Cole got a goal. Um, it was just a really good game for the top line, and I think they really needed it. They really needed that to break out in that way. Um, because honestly, it was getting a little mentally draining on them, I think. You saw those post-game interviews, you saw kind of their reactions, and uh, it was just it was getting to feel really depressing, and I was seeing that sentiment across the fan base. What about you? How are you feeling?
Yeah, it's you know I think we talked about this a little bit when I had Max on the show against the Devils, and the world as a whole is so depressing and making everybody so anxious right now that when you turn to something that's supposed to be for entertainment and it's just like unrelentingly bad, it just
Yeah.
drains the heck out of you. And I think that's where a lot of Habs fans have been at the start of this season, and why, the anger is so palpable. Yes, it's
Mhm.
partially because the organization shifted the expectations. People wanted to see some progression this year. We haven't seen that. But I think it has a lot to do with just in general how much is weighing down everybody right now on our shoulders,
Mhm.
seeing, you know, the stuff that's going on around the world. I don't need to get into specifics, but we all know things are not going
Mhm.
great for humanity, we'll say. Uh, so seeing some level of positivity is really nice. And frankly, I think the Canadians now, over the last couple of games, have been taking steps in the right direction. They just haven't been finding ways to score and win. They finally got there today, and what a nice change of pace for afternoon games. Because frankly, it seems like the Canadians for
Yeah.
years, afternoon games, it's always like they're going to play the Brodeur New Jersey Devils. It's going to be 1-0. They get 7 shots, and you're like, why did I waste 3 hours? So at least today was fun. It was extremely fun. It was messy, but I had a lot of fun watching the game today.
Yeah. I don't mind messy. I really don't. Uh, I wouldn't have said that at the beginning of the season. I was expecting a little bit more refinement, but frankly, at this point, I'll take it.
Yeah.
I will take it. Like, it shouldn't be, but at this point, even an overtime win would have been, oh, that's an improvement. But it's nice that it's a actual regular time win. So yeah.
Yeah, it was nice to see them actually do what we've expected from them for the last several seasons, where they look like they might be down and out, and then they battle back. And now we're in a situation where Cole Caulfield is leading the Rocket Richard race. And, will he win it? Probably not. But the fact is, he could. Like,
Yeah.
that's really interesting. And like, yeah, he's not going to shoot. What is he shooting? Like over 30% so far forever. But also, he's not going to be struggling as much overall at even strength as he has so far this season, as many Habs players have over the course of the whole season either. So the goals that he has right now can't be taken away. He could
Yeah.
score at a 30-35 goal pace right now and easily hit 40. So I think Caulfield's going to hit 50, honestly. At the beginning of the year,
Yeah.
my expectation was like 40, 44, 45 kind of thing, just because I expected him to pop off after what he did last year. Now,
Mhm.
I wouldn't be surprised even a little bit if he hit 50.
Yeah, I am honestly I hate putting numbers, to these things. I think specifically because Caulfield had such a I don't wanna say lackluster, I think just in the number of goals, it was a little lackluster. I do think he had a really good season just in terms of defensive play and overall improvement, but let's be real, Cole Caulfield is not there to be defensively I mean, every player is, but he's a goal scorer. So when a goal scorer isn't scoring goals, you notice. Um, and I think honestly, it was really impressive that he was able to score regardless of how Suzuki was playing um, early in the season. But now you're seeing Suzuki kind of back at what the expected level is for him. This game, at least, it's a big step in the right direction. I thought that the 2-goal game he had, I think it was against the Devils. I can't remember which team it was against, but it was against one of the teams in the league that we played. And, that was kind of what I was expecting a bit of a turnaround from him, but something about the fact that in this particular the 2 goals he had, Slavkovsky, can we talk about those passes? Even the first one was great, but the second one, oh man.
What about the one
I
on
saw some
Caulfield's
people being
second
like
goal?
Slavkovsky. I was not familiar with your game. I saw a few people saying that, and
I
it's
mean,
true. The second one too, yeah, on Cole.
yep. Like, and we are familiar with Slavkovsky's game, and he's
Yes.
still surprising, right? And this is actually
Yep.
something that I wanted to hit on. I'm so glad you brought it up because this year, I know that Slav is not 100% healthy. You know, he got banged up in
Yeah.
preseason. We know he's currently wearing a knee brace, so like not 100%. But
That's for fun.
he's been kind of thrown into the doghouse a lot by fans, I find, in the same category as Doc Caulfield, Suzuki. Like we know those three are struggling to start the season in like a total package way. Caulfield, the scoring is perfect. Love it.
Yeah.
But it like the defense is not as great. Obviously, he's not making plays as effectively. His line mates aren't finishing plays. And Slav kind of gets dragged into that and has been kind of talked about as if he's struggling. I don't think
Mhm.
he's struggled. Not really. Like he's definitely not 100%, but I think he's played really well to start this year. And now he's almost up to a point a game despite missing some time here and being injured. He's only got the
Mhm.
one goal, but he has flexed his playmaking muscles and he looks good out there.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you in terms of I do not think he was where fans were kind of putting him as. Honestly, I think that like a lot of the speculation of him not playing well was kind of reinforced by Marty putting him down on the second line to people's head. But frankly, I think Marty made that decision based on the fact that he expected Slav to get that line going.
Yes.
I think that was the reason he put Slav down there because he saw that Slav was doing good things. He just something wasn't clicking on the top line. So I think that was the effort Marty made. Although I don't know why something wasn't clicking on that line because in my opinion, and this is a hot take, nobody come at me, but in my opinion, that was Slav and Suzuki have better chemistry than Cole and Suzuki do. Even I would be willing to go there. I
Yeah.
think. I think ultimately that is the pairing that will work distributed again um, in the lineup. I guess is what I'm saying. Uh, but I think it really showed on the sheet today for Slav.
Yeah, it did. And I'm actually with you. I think Cole and Suzuki have excellent chemistry in certain situations. I think when they're both on and they're forechecking, they look like two little sharks circling the zone, forcing mistakes, and that like quick strike offense that they're able to generate is incredible. But for a 200-foot rink, end to end, Slavkovsky and Suzuki work better together in all three zones. I think
I would agree.
they really feed well off of each other. They know where they're going to be on the ice. I find Slavkovsky still makes the odd play where he like doesn't scan before he sends the puck somewhere, but Nick's going to be in those spots. Like that's the thing. Like he knows Nick Suzuki is going to be in
Yeah.
those spots cuz Nick Suzuki is clinical in being in the right spots. He's always making the
Hmm.
right decision. So I think they work really really well together and you know, you mentioned that they dropped Slavkovsky to get the second line going. That's exactly what he did. In
Yeah.
I think it was the Devils game. It might have been the Leafs game, but that line was by far the Canadiens' best line. And then they flipped Caulfield down there and put Slav back on the top line at the end of the game
Yeah.
last game, and then for this game as well. And Caulfield looks dynamic in the offensive zone with those guys, but he can't carry them the way that Slav did. And that's going to be the kind of thing I think over the next couple of years that really separates Slavkovsky in people's minds is we know what Cole Caulfield is and what he's capable of. And with another player who can kind of carry the bag a little bit defensively, he's so dynamic and so entertaining and so skilled. But
Hmm.
Slavkovsky can do more jobs and as he rounds out, he's only 20 years old. It's going to become apparent that he's going to be not just like the power forward that the Canadians were hoping for, but I've had this stuck in my head for a few seasons now. I think his potential is like the next Marian Hossa, but with a bit more
Mm-hmm.
mean.
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot more, but a bit more mean.
Mm-hmm. I see someone in the chat, I'm seeing Ian specifically talk about how broadcasts were have a misunderstanding of the player this laugh is.
Yep.
And like I think I see this from fans across the board too, where for some reason people just have this impression of Slav as a goal scorer, whereas I think he does his best work in playmaking.
Yep.
Um, he's so strong along the boards when he's at his best. He is he's just, and I don't want to buy into the whole size debate. I really don't. I don't want to get into it. But I am one of those people that I think balance is important. I don't think small players aren't good. I just think there's balance that needs
Yep.
to be made there. And again, it's not like Nick is a super small player, but I think having a guy using his size the way that Slav does, or he's starting to, is so important. Because honestly, it's a little bit of Doc was not he's not doing what a big boy kind of you know what I mean? Like
Yep.
I think that like, and I'm not like dogging on him at all, but that's just a fact of I think he's not playing consistently like a big dude.
Yeah, and not like we expect Doc too, right? Because when he
Yes.
was at his best, he was muscling guys around, and he is a board battle genius in a lot of ways. Like there are very few players in the NHL who win battles along the boards as often as Kirby Doc. But there
Mhm.
was the one moment tonight where he kind of dropped the shoulder and charged the net a little bit, and it looked dangerous, and he couldn't quite pull it off. I think he got stick checked at the last second. But we haven't seen that net drive and that like willingness to be physically dominant from Kirby Doc on a
Mhm.
consistent basis this year. So yeah,
Mhm.
Slavkovsky does need to kind of step into that role a little bit, and we know he can. I don't know if I
Mhm.
necessarily want him to be, fighting. Although if he wants to fight
Yeah.
Zach Benson, go ahead, man. That seems kind of unfair, but I mean, do what you need to
Benson
do.
came in when he thought what was it? I can't remember who the other guy was, but I think Benson came in thinking that he had a good grip on Slav, and
Yep.
I think Slav was got up a lot faster than Benson expected him
Yeah.
to.
It was one of those like, oh no, no, this is a bad idea. I need to run away. But credit to him for being very
Honestly,
brave
yeah.
or dumb, one of the two. But yeah, I'd like to see a little bit more, like, I don't want to say grit, but a little bit more pace to Doc's game
Mhm,
right now, where I
mhm,
think he's still getting his timing, and he's not being it's not that he's being tentative.
mhm,
But he's not all in on plays, if that makes sense.
mhm.
It's like there's a
And I
bit of
think it makes
hesitation.
sense because of the fact that he got injured. I understand it's human nature really um, to kinda want to protect yourself, but then again, hockey is not human nature necessarily, putting yourself in front of pucks and blocking them is not human nature, you know?
Yep.
Generally, we wanna get out of the way of those, which, relevant to Shea Weber getting into the Hall of Fame. But yeah, so I think I get it, but I do think in order to be successful in the way that we need him to, he needs to get back I think Mark used to say the Clifford the Big Dog thing, where I think
Yep.
he realized that he's big and he was playing like it before he got injured. So yeah, I don't want to reduce him down to his size. Again, I don't want to be reductive, but I think when a player is struggling or when they're trying to get back on their feet, it's important to reduce it down. You know what I mean?
100%.
Like I think it can be simplified right now. We can
Yeah.
introduce more when he's got more, but for right now, it can be simplified.
Yeah. And I know we're going to talk about the defense in a couple minutes here as we shift to the second period, but before we move on from the forwards and Kirby Doc, I did want to mention that Brendan Gallagher is just crushing it this year.
He
And I'm
is.
just telling the Montreal Canadiens, when you honor Shea Weber,
Mhm,
do not give him a stick. Do not give him
mhm.
a puck because I don't know. Kate, do you remember the videos talking about? I think it was the Onion did the Scott Sterling videos where it's like the guy. The first one was he was a soccer goalie and like every shot just magically goes right off of his face, but he's saving
Yeah.
everything. So they're like talking about how great he is. I just have this image of my head of the Canadians being like, and to honor Shea Weber, he's gonna do one last crazy slap shot, like break the speed record, and he comes out and wires it off the crossbar and it hits Gallagher's hand on the bench and just blows it up, and you're like, no, no, please
The slow
no.
motion,
I just
no.
keep them apart from each other. It's not because they're not friends. I'm sure Shea Weber is a wonderful person who is great friends with Brendan Gallagher. We don't need to
I'm
risk
sure he
this.
feels really bad about that. I'm
Oh, I'm
sure he
sure.
feels terrible about that.
I wonder if it's one of those things where in the locker room, it like gets brought up all the time just to like dunk on the captain. You know what I mean? Like a
Yeah,
funny
yeah,
thing, like, oh, don't break my hand, you know, like stuff like that. I don't know.
yeah.
But please keep things away from Gallagher's hands right now. Keep this man healthy. He has worked so hard to get back to this.
Mhm.
Please don't let Shea break his hand again.
I just really quickly before we move on from the forwards, I want to give. I know it wasn't the best game from either of them, Yoel Armia and Jake Evans, but when they're aggressive on the PK, when they both decide, or when they're both in the other team zone, when they're in the PK, something about them like turns into. And I tweeted in both Blue Skied about this. I don't know if that's the term we're gonna use now, but I talked about this a little bit. Like it's like suddenly they're like I don't know, like Rantanen and McKinnon together when they're in the on the PK in the opposite zone. So yeah, it's really fun, and I need to get my Jake Evans mention in early. So
Yes, Jake Evans, always a trooper. All right, let's transition to the second period here. And as we do, I got to tell you all about Hyperdrive Hockey because, frankly, you guys are missing out. Folks who aren't watching this show, it is replaced a lot of the hockey content that I used to watch. Frankly, it's really damn good. Max, Daff, and Kevin are creating some excellent work out there on the Game Over Hub channel, which you can check. Click Game Over Montreal here, or if you're listening on the podcast, go to YouTube, search at Game Over Network. You'll find the channel very quickly, and look up Hyperdrive Hockey. It's a different way of looking at the game. It's got that Quebecois flavor, but it's in English, and it's just fun. We debuted a new segment on Friday that we're going to be doing every Friday, where we have a couple of Game Over or Game On hosts from the different markets on together with our Hyperdrive Hockey folks, and we kind of have the opportunity to either be negative or be positive. We can build up or we can tear down a little bit, and then we debate it back and forth. This is what I've wanted to see in hockey media for so long, but so often when we have a national show, we have people who are on the show as national writers or national
mhm.
broadcasters. And when they talk about individual teams that aren't the Maple Leafs, let's be real here, they don't know anything. They don't know
Yeah.
anything. And Ian mentioned tonight that the broadcast was like mislabeling Slav, and we kind of mentioned that as well. At the beginning of the broadcast, they were talking about how the Canadiens were at their lowest of lows after the game against the Leafs, and it was the worst game of their losing streak. And like, you can lose a lot, but you can't lose like that. And I was like, but they
So
played.
one of their best
Yeah,
losses.
it was like the significantly best game they've played in a long time. They didn't get through Wool, but like that's kind of how you want to lose, right? Is playing well, trust the
Yeah.
process, not the results. So I would like to see more of us who know things in each market get the time to talk about them instead of
Mhm.
overtasking national people who don't have the time or capacity to understand the intricacies of these teams and then putting them on national television to talk about it when they don't know what they're talking about. Like, why is Carlo
Mhm.
Koliakovo on a Habs broadcast? Nothing against him, but why
Yeah.
is he on a Habs broadcast, right? He doesn't have anything, no skin in the game. We do. We know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
All right, Hyperdrive Hockey also does, and they'll bring us in every week to debate stuff. It's really fun. It's a great show. I think you'll all really enjoy it. And frankly, the talent that those three have is out of this world in terms of production value, hosting quality, commentary. They are really damn smart. And plus, I love our Game Over team, so I'm always going to
Yeah.
continue boosting us. All right, so, Kay, to you, the defense. What is your number
Sorry,
one
just
topic?
really quickly, Dennis in the chat said Gallagher's hands tremble when Shea Weber is within 100 feet, like a sixth sense.
It's like
You
if
know how
if
some people
Shea
are
Weber
like, my
squeezes a
knee?
stick, he gets like finger like when your hands fall asleep. That
This
happens.
tingle? Yeah. No, you know how
Oh
some people
man.
are like, "Oh, my knee is bad. I can feel the rain is about to happen." I think that's, Galley's kind of talent is, "Oh, Shay's close, Shay's close."
Oh god.
My hands are shaking.
If he had that talent though, wouldn't he not get hit by the shots?
Well, I
I
don't
don't know.
I don't wanna put that out into the world.
It's over. It can't happen anymore. He's retired.
Yeah.
Gallagher
Shea
can
Weber's
rest
shot
easy.
can't hate you.
We're probably
Can't
putting
hurt
some
you
sort of
anymore.
like weird curse on Gallagher now, but
I know.
All right, the defense. Who did you want to talk about
Yes.
first? Is it Caden Gooley?
Yes, it is actually. No, it legitimately is, because I just wanna really quickly I am loving the whole, the "fuck it, we ball" kind of attitude that I'm seeing from, like, him shooting the puck, which when it's when the offense is as dry as it is, I really don't mind that at all. No, and I don't think he's making stupid decisions. I do like again, I am biased, but I do feel like he's picking his spots better than someone like Matheson. I think he's, shooting a little bit better. So, Ghoulie Nation and all, but I am seeing, it's did you see that? Which goal was it where he was, like, frantically pointing at Matheson to get him to, defend? I think it was the 4-3 goal,
Yeah.
and it was
The-
like I bet in his head it was like the "all around me are familiar faces."
I
So,
feel
yeah, that was my first guy.
yeah, I've been liking seeing Gooley look a little bit more like we expect him after coming back from the injury. He seemed a little bit discombobulated, and now we're seeing more of the really savvy decisions that he makes. I was I saw on socials during the game that he was kind of getting some blame for that goal, or like that's not an NHL play. Like, what is he gonna do? Like, he has no choice in that situation. It really was Matheson, but as much as Matheson did have a struggle night tonight, defensively anyway, Primo's got to stop some of those shots. And I know we're gonna talk about Primo in the third segment, but
Yeah.
Primo's got to
Yeah,
stop some of those
I'll save
shots.
that one, but yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And I would like to finish on Lane Hudson because it's a high note. So let's just touch on Mike Matheson. I want to specifically talk about him on the power play. I'm seeing a lot of, and I don't want to blame Marty of favoring the vets because it's human nature. For a coach, anyways, the NHL coach, human nature is what I mean. Um, I think with the power play kind of starting off well, it bought Matheson some time up
yeah,
there, but it's been miserable. It's been power play 2 has clearly been the superior one. When we had the 5 on 3, which by the way, I expected the Habs to do nothing with, as they always have. Uh, and it was Hudson who made things happen there.
yep,
So I was hoping to see on the subsequent power plays, see him a little bit more. Especially as they got more and more power plays, I was like, okay, maybe Marty will put him up for this one. But I'm really frustrated with what Mike Matheson is doing. And I think it's a little bit of a disservice to him to put him in this position where he's failing. And I've been a Mike Matheson defender because I think we should generally be nicer. Uh,
we
I mean,
should.
don't look at my tweets. Don't look at my tweets, but I feel like we should be nicer. But yeah, so that's kind of Mike Matheson is it would have been a great game for it's already been a good game for Mike Matheson haters, but I think it would have been a wonderful game if that goal had come back. Which by the way, ridiculous
Yeah,
that it might have.
yes. When they showed that as like the possible glove pass, like I'd like to talk to the person in the Sabres organization who was like, "Oh, what?" Like who's upset about that, but like, "Oh, they're gonna call that back." Like, come on, come on. Like it was a weirdly officiated game this one, but yeah, I'm with you on Matheson. I think the Canadians are kind of in a really tough situation because they clearly know that Lane Hudson's the best defenseman on this team.
Yeah.
Frankly, he might already be the best player on this team, which is
Mhm.
wild to say, but might actually be true. I'm not married to it, but it
I think with the start of the season, definitely. I think right now you can definitely say that.
yeah.
I would
And
confidently say that.
I think that they're trying not to anoint him right away because this is
Mhm.
very, very early for a player of his age to be in this position. Like I don't even know if Kale McCarr was playing 23 minutes a night at 20 years old. You know what I mean? Like he took, I think he came into the league at 21, actually. Maybe it might have been 20. But either way, same with Quinn Hughes. Like these guys were excellent right out of the gate, but I don't know if they were as relied on with less supporting structure behind them as Lane Hudson is. But I think they've got to just kind of make a choice here and realize that what they're asking Matheson to do, he cannot do. What they're asking David
Mhm.
Savard to do, he cannot do. So
Man, poor David Sword.
I know it's not either of their faults, right? They are put in a
Exactly.
position that they are not built for. Let Lane Hudson figure it out on the top pair,
Mhm.
put him with Caden Gooley, and just let it ride. Don't react to a single bad game or a couple of bad games. Let them figure it out. They're two smart, very talented players. Give them some runway and have them be your top matchup pairing. It's gonna have some bumps in the road, but fretting about that when the current matchup pairing is just torn asunder every single
Mhm.
night, try something new. Put Matheson
Mhm.
and Savard in a better position to succeed where they're on the second pair, maybe playing 22 minutes a night for Matheson instead of 24, 25. And I bet you'll see a huge uptick in play. And as much as Matheson is wildly irritating to watch at times, like the moment
Yeah.
when he had the puck tonight, shorthanded, and circled back up to the point and just stayed there,
Oh.
like I'm getting a little bit older and I'd like to think more mature, Kay. I don't yell at my TV much when the Habs are on. Whereas when I was younger, I was like, I needed a foam brick to throw, you know? But now I rarely do. But when he held the puck at the point on the blue line, shorthanded for like 10 seconds until somebody came and took it from him, I was like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? What kind of decision making is like have some consciousness of the situation that you're in? And sometimes he just doesn't, but he's so good at so many things that I also get frustrated with people constantly tearing him down. So it's like Mike Matheson puts the entire Habs fan base into this constant fight or flight response because
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
put in a position where he's constantly exploited, but he still puts up baller offensive numbers. He still contributes in a lot of interesting ways. Like there was a moment tonight where he was first on the puck in his own zone along the boards close to the corner, and he just got like nailed from behind. Absolutely nailed
Yeah.
right in the numbers. And he ended up falling down, finding the puck, finding his stick, controlling it, and then chipping it out of the zone. I was like, that's a special moment for Mike Matheson. Like,
Mhm.
not many players in the league can do that. But
Mhm.
then he breaks in on the power play, one on none, and shoots a perimeter shot wide of the net that immediately goes back to the other end. And you're like, but why? And
Yeah.
that's Mike
Yeah.
Matheson. It's those two things all the time.
Yeah. I was just sorry, I was just laughing because Saltwater Think Tank was saying Kay's doing the HR meme with Matheson and Savard. You know the one where this like supposedly cute guy is like compliments you and you're like, oh thanks. It's like an insulting. I didn't think like a then like another guy who isn't as conventionally attractive compliments you and you're like, I'm calling HR. So for me, I think the difference here again is the position they've been put in.
Yeah.
Last season, oh my god, I was so frustrated. I had so many things that were just like, why is Caden Goulet being put with David Svard? We were seeing that pairing a lot. Um, and it was I don't know why I want to say the first pairing. I just feel like they were getting a lot of minutes, whatever it was, whatever pairing it was. And I think that was what was happening was this year we're seeing him get less minutes, and so we're seeing less bad. Um, so I think it's again, it comes back to kind of being put in this position where I don't think okay, just because a guy is a physical freak and can play however much Matheson plays, doesn't mean he should. I
Yeah.
think is what I'm trying to say ultimately.
Yeah. And that's the same thing people were worried about with Hudson, right? I saw, I think it was Paradiggity says Hudson is awesome, but this will be the first time in his life where he's played this many games or so many games that are to ease him into the pair one over time. No, I agree on paper,
Mhm.
but also watching Hudson every night, I don't see I don't see fatigue, number one. I
Yeah.
don't see panic in his game. Like I mentioned it on socials during the game. There was a moment, I think it was in the first period, where uh, there was a line change happening for the Buffalo Sabres. Players were kind of like heading towards the bench. There's a broken play in the neutral zone, and Hudson kind of swoops in and tries to chip the puck up to, I think it was Dvorak who was skating forward, but he didn't chip it hard enough. And Peyton Krebs intercepted the pass, cut around Hudson, who was kind of caught having to turn and couldn't get the step back on Krebs. And he lost body position. So Krebs has a partial break, and Hudson's right there with him, but he can't catch him. But at the perfect exact right moment where Krebs is trying to pull the puck in front to shoot, Hudson reaches around and pokes the stick away or pokes the puck away. And that level of intelligence on plays
Mhm.
where he made the mistake and then he goes back and covers for it.
You see that a lot. You see
Yep.
him doing that a lot.
Yep.
People will, be like he's making defensive mistakes, and yes, he is, but I think the difference between him and, someone like Barron or where Mayu is right now is he knows how to make up for them.
Yep.
He is It's both the IQ and the speed. Um, to just kind of my 2 cents on that is we're already seeing him play that many minutes. Honestly, we're just seeing him play it with David Savard and sometimes Matheson, because again, I wanna talk about the carousel of defense that we're seeing, defense pairings, but, we're seeing him play that many minutes anyways. Yeah, you could talk about quality of competition, but why not just do it until it doesn't work? I mean, do it, it might not work at first, let it cook, I will bet it will work, and I say this as, by it, I mean, Gooley Hudson. Um, and then once if it's for some reason just doesn't stop working anymore, and it's not working over time, again, be patient with these things because that's been an issue. Um, but if it's not working, then break it up then.
Yep.
For right now, why do we have to watch Mike Matheson for 20,000 minutes a night when we simply could not?
Yeah. And I think that's where I'm at as well is we could keep running this table continually throughout the season and give Hudson more time to figure things out at the pro level. Not convinced he needs it, but we know that this doesn't work and it's not going to magically start working. So try something else and give it time. And I think I understand totally the people who are worried about Lane like not having enough gas left in the tank in
Yeah,
the second half
I
of the
agree.
season, or being overwhelmed and maybe losing confidence. But I think it's really important to point out in those situations where the young player loses confidence, it's usually because there's no support for that player when they make a mistake. Like NHL coaching staffs, by and large, do not give the grace to rookies that they give to veteran players, right? Like if
Mhm.
Marty St. Louis wasn't the coach, say that it was back to Dominique Ducharme, and not
Yeah,
trying to slam Ducharme, just an average NHL coach.
yeah, yeah.
And Lane Hudson had one game with as many mistakes as Mike Matheson makes on any given night. He's not playing 22 minutes the next
Mhm.
week. Like it's just not happening. But Marty St. Louis, we can debate the qualities of his coaching ability in terms of like in-game adjustments or strategy or X's and O's, system development, all that stuff. But in terms of putting young players in a position where they aren't going to lose confidence, he's the best I've seen in a very long time in the NHL. Like he
I
actually
agree with
does
that.
understand the workings, right? Because he's been there.
Mhm, mhm. I'm just checking because I see someone saying take him off the PK and replace that with power play one. And I'm just checking what his time on ice is because I don't remember seeing him out there very often for the PK, but I could be totally wrong.
He only
So
had like
shorthanded, I'm
4 seconds
thinking for
tonight.
4 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm not necessarily seeing that. Um, but I do again totally understand it. That's a concern I had again for a certain someone. This feels insane, but I did have that concern with Caden Gooley because we were seeing him play a lot of minutes. Now, at the end of the day, that didn't turn out to be a problem because he got injured, which is not necessarily how we want that to work out. But it was very much like, oh, you asked for it. It was the monkey paw. But um, I totally get it, and I think this is a tricky situation. But for right now, this team cannot get the stink of losing the way it was starting to.
Yeah.
It just can't, and you gotta do things that you need to in order to make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah. And I would say, like, for those who are worried about Hudson being like the number one or whatever, and like too much too soon. I would remind everyone that when PK Subban was 20 years old, he was the Canadiens' number one defenseman by like end of December in his rookie year. Roman
Yeah.
Hammerlick also got a lot of ice time, but in terms of matchups, it was Subban carrying Hal Gill that rookie
Mhm.
year. Lane
To be
Hudson
fair,
is
wasn't he in the I can't remember where he was in the minors, but he wasn't an NCAA
no,
guy,
he was playing
right?
more games.
So I get
Yes,
that. I
yeah,
get that. Like
and
I
he played
can
a
that's my
year.
kind of counter to that. Yeah.
He also played a year in the American Hockey League, so I believe he
Mhm.
was a year older than Hudson is now. He was 21 when he first made the NHL, but at 20 years old, Lane Hudson is significantly more polished than PK Subban was. Like, does he take
Yeah.
crazy risks? Yes, but and I'm the biggest PK Subban booster of all time. But Lane Hudson
Mhm.
is better. Like, that's I know it's crazy to say based on a 15 to 19 game sample, but this kid has it. He is that good. Like, he will bring people out of seats for the next 15 years
Even
plus.
opposing fans,
Yep.
we saw them get like loud when he had the puck. And I'm sure for them it was like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. And as for us, it's always like, oh my god, he's gonna do something. But he's a really exciting player. And I just and somebody said he's already 21. So he does have the physical, I guess, edge rather than a like a CHL player would have. So it's give and take. But one thing I do think is really that you pointed out is Marty has let him make mistakes. He has made mistakes. But ultimately, and I'm not like trying to, again, it's the fan in me. Uh, but this is a fan podcast, so I'm gonna be a fan. Ultimately, I'm not seeing him make that many mistakes that
Agreed.
he isn't making up for. You know, we saw a lot of like Marty letting the guys, like the young guys, make mistakes that were like actual mistakes that they didn't necessarily recover from, and then give them another shift after as well. So
Yep.
I think that like he's really earning this confidence, and I think it's also Marty is giving it to him. And just really quickly, for people on certain people on, there's like a little group, so I don't want to lump them in, but there's a little group that was making a comparison. I'm not sure if you saw this between Ducharme and St. Louis. Um, and I was like, let's not do this. This is not where we need to we don't need to go here. And I think people are really forgetting like where we are as a team.
You know
I get
what?
it, but
I actually have something for that perfectly prepared. You won't be able to see
ooh,
it on our call, but if you load up the
mhm,
stream on YouTube, you'll be able to see it. We'll do that in the third segment after we talk about Caden
okay.
Primo, because it's a perfect opportunity. I've been wanting to talk about this for a while, but I will, in defense of Marty St. Louis, talk about why this start to the season hasn't really changed my opinion of him whatsoever. All right.
Mhm,
We'll talk about that in a minute. I wanted to read a couple of comments on Lane Hudson because I feel like they're very on point. Doug E says, with the puck on the blue line, literally no one can take the puck away from him. Again, and Denis says Hudson along the blue line is just incredible. And I want to shout out Dublang, who I don't think I've seen you in the chat before, so welcome. Says, I think fatigue going from NCAA schedule to the NHL is mental fatigue versus physical fatigue, and added on where there was another comment that said, so I don't see why we should worry about fatigue until we start seeing constant mental mistakes. I'm with you. I think
mhm.
that's really on point.
Mhm. Let me just cut in, by the way, we're seeing a lot of people today, which, like, I love it. And if you guys could like the stream, that'd be really, really, really good for us. And I will take it. If you guys like the stream, I will take that as the message I will get is you guys forgive me for not, for the technical difficulties. So I will think you guys are really mad at me if you don't like the stream. So please like it.
Yes, please like the stream. And by the way, I just saw this morning that over 60% of the people who are watching our videos are not actually subscribed to Game Over Montreal. So please hit the subscribe button. And YouTube just added a nice little animation. So when you click on the subscribe, it gives you a little firework flower display thing. So
Dude.
enjoy the little dopamine push in your brain when you click something and it gives you something fun. Hit that subscribe button and help us out here on Game Over Montreal as we build something cool, an actual platform for people that isn't super hard right wing coded in hockey. It's going to be fun. We're going to build stuff. We're going to build things together. We have a community here that's so welcoming and embraces people from all over. So join us, have some fun, and we'll transition to the third period to talk about Caden Primo. But before I do, I guess I should show people our merch a little bit. Hey, Kay, and we can tell everybody that they can scan the QR code that's on the screen right now and check out our 3 amazing merch lines that exist currently. We'll be dropping some more as we get to closer to the holidays here. These are designed by Brady Shallis from Game Over Winnipeg. We have our Live and Die by the Goalie design because everybody likes the goalies, right? Like we depend on them in Montreal. We always seem to find great goalies here. So let's celebrate them. We have our Skater design, which is very early 90s, late 80s retro. It makes me think of, when the N64 came out, going over to my best friend's house and having a sleepover, playing GoldenEye all night and eating pizza. That's what that shirt makes me think of. And then we have our established design, which is more streetwear. I really like it as well. The fabric the shirts are made out of, I really enjoy. And we've got, of course, some great mugs and stuff and some hair accessories as well. There's going to be a bunch more stuff that we're adding for women in the next little while here because, frankly, we need to do a better job as sports industry of giving things that women want. Like, it's over half the
Yeah.
population. Why are we pretending that women don't like sports?
They're all so ugly. All the stuff, all the merch
so
tends to
much
be
of
so
it.
ugly.
It's like, what if
And
we
something I
made
just
it?
really wanna
Go
yeah,
for it.
something I just really wanna mention, by the way, that I noticed the other day that are really important to me personally, and I know is important to other people, is that these are made as they are ordered. They aren't mass produced. And that's I as somebody who's like really values a lower waist lifestyle, that's really important to me. So if if you care about that, that's a positive. And if you don't care about that, it doesn't change anything.
Still wasting less. And by the way, we are currently a print on demand shop. That's the only way that we can function as the company grows right now. But the plan is once we are stable enough and sell enough merchandise that we're, making money, paying all of our contributors fairly, sharing in some profits. My plan is to actually switch to a Montreal shirt printing company that I know of. It's just that we can't afford to buy the stock right now. So uh, that is the plan long term. Is it's going to be made local. Unfortunately, isn't right now. But stick with us. We're gonna get through this tough starting phase and give you guys some amazing stuff that's built for you and built for us as well. All right, Kate, let's talk about Caden Primo because this was not a game for the goalies. It
Yeah.
was very rough. The expected goals tonight, I believe, in total were under 6. It was actually five and a
Mhm.
half, 5.6, and the actual goals were 12. Neither
Yeah.
goalie, or I guess I was going to say neither goalie, but 4 goalies played tonight. Montembeault didn't have to do much. He just held the fort at the end there. But Primo gave
Mhm.
up, was it 5 on 1.4 expected goals? 2 goals right after the Canadiens scored. And most of the goals that went in on Primo tonight were good goals. But I'm at the point with him where if you're giving up the goals on the next play right after a goal, even if it's a good shot, you just got to stop a couple of these per game.
Yeah.
I don't have confidence in him.
Yeah, I was a little harsh on him because I was so frustrated with the game that I was like, "There's a sieve in net where a goalie should be." Uh, and it's just the thing about Primo is that so his issue to me personally has always been that uh the inconsistency.
Mm-hmm.
That's been a big issue. But I think we're seeing the inconsistency now tip over to it being inconsistent, leaning on negative. Um, I think I'm just really there's definitely some goals that again, and where we were seeing this from Monty too, where there were some mental mistakes in the last few games. I think he was great this game. I know it's only like what was it like 15 minutes that he was in the game,
Yeah.
but like there were some quick goals that he could have fallen apart on, and he didn't.
Easy.
And I think like we're seeing a lot of discourse about the mental fragility of this team or momentum or whatever you want to call it. Um, which for once at some point in this game we had positive momentum, but doesn't always happen. But to me, it's just really we can't have a goalie who's that inconsistent, especially a backup. Monty isn't like such a good goalie that we can give him like 20,000 starts
Yeah.
either. So I'm just a little with Primo. I think my opinion on him really is I don't trust it. And by it, I mean his performance. No, I'm not calling him it. I am not dehumanizing him, but I don't trust the concept of him. Um, and I, but the big issue there is then like, what do you do?
Yeah.
I'm not okay. I'm not into the idea of calling up. I think it's
Yeah,
Dobish,
Delish.
who
Yeah,
is
you got to let him cook a
yeah,
little bit.
yeah. I don't want him up. Also, everybody's being really nice to me in the chat. Thank you.
Yes, I'm seeing many compliments for Kay, and I love it. I adore this. This is exactly what I want to see. Uh, there is Kabo Kakkonen is on waivers, so that's an option
Yes, he
if the Canadians
is.
wanted to make a decision soon. I don't think they're going to panic. I think, I was talking to Olivier Bouchard, who, those who don't know, is like an OG Habs blogger. He used to have a blog called, I think it was like En Entendant les Nordiques, because he was a Nordiques fan. And he used to count the scoring chances, like manually track scoring chances for Habs games. And before like Natural Stat Trick and all these massive websites that were out, the Canadians were one of the only teams in the NHL that had detailed scoring chance data because of Olivier. And he's
Mhm.
kind of not really in the hockey blogging community anymore, but he reached out, and because we talked about Dante Fabro and the fact that Canadians didn't claim him, even though it seemed to make sense to do so as a right side guy. He's pretty effective. And we kind of came to the conclusion that Hughes and Gorton just aren't nearly as panicked as media wants people to believe.
Mhm.
They're patient. Like, they've always been patient, and we haven't seen panic moves, so why would we expect it now? Right? So there's options out there for the goaltending, but I just don't think this management group is in a rush.
So to me, kind of in a bigger picture, not even just focusing on goaltending, I was thinking about this. I think a lot of people were talking about how the team set expectations for fans, which is why fans are extra disappointed. Now, I get it on one hand, but on the other, I'm like, haven't they always given some amount of lip service to I mean, I guess it's players have more than the team themselves, like, I remember last season, like, in the golf tourna in the golf event that they have before the season, uh, Nick was like, "Yeah, we're like we wanna be in the mix," and everybody's like, "Haha, LOL," but it's like, what else was he supposed to say?
Seriously, right?
So I think this time and I people that's so annoying to me because people do it so often to all the players, where they're like, "Why doesn't this big loser admit that he's gonna be a big loser this entire season?" It's like, why would he do that?
Also, like,
Especially the captain.
if you've ever spoken to any athlete, like, they're hardwired to not ever think that way. Like, if you're at the peak of your position in athletics, in any sport, if you're starting the year thinking that you can't accomplish
Oh,
anything,
Andrew, am I
my
hmm.
I think I'm still coming across. I guess you can't hear
Yes,
me.
now you are.
Okay,
Sorry,
perfect.
now I can. Yeah.
Yeah, but like, if you start any year, season, competitive window, and your thought is like, well, we can't do this, like, you've already defeated yourself before it starts.
Mhm,
I know a lot of fighters because of the gym that I go to, right? And there'll be times where they lose a fight due to like a decision from judges. If they didn't get knocked out, uniformly most of them will never admit that they lost. They'll
mhm.
say like, this went wrong for me, or this went wrong for me, or the judges didn't like this, the judges liked their style more, but they don't have it in them to be like, well, I lost that. Like, they might go over their performance and want to improve things, but they just don't
Yeah.
think in a way like, oh, we're gonna tank this year. That's not the way athletes function. So
Mhm.
that's where I'm at with the people trying to dunk on players for being like, yeah, we're gonna try to make the playoffs this year. Of course they try. Of course they try.
Yeah.
What else do you want to hear?
Yeah, yeah. And I think, like, specifically speaking about sorry, Primo, saw a Dublank, I think, really loving the participation by everybody, by the way. Some really great comments today. We can't wait for the overtime where we can have your questions come in. But one thing I'm seeing is they say that fixing the goalie position is lost priority. Since goalie masks defense issues, which I agree, we don't want those issues masked. We want them out there so that it can be fixed. But then they continue, but at the same time, constant losses affect morale, which I get. But I guess speaking that out, I guess it's okay to me because either way, even if Primo was great, I don't think he'd get that many starts compared to Monty. And I think Monty is serviceable to good, depending on where he is. So I've talked myself into thinking that Primo's fine where he is. I think we just have to accept that there is no, which sucks for him as a person, there is no, long term future for him here. I think as soon as there's another option, they will be using that option. But I'm glad that they're not rushing it. And I feel bad for Primo because Mark's talking about how he was taken out of the NCAA too early. And I agree.
Yeah, that happens a lot. Players just
Yeah.
rushed along a little bit too much, and organizations that aren't good at developing, they do it a lot. And the Canadians under Bergevin were one of those
Hmm.
organizations, right? And I think Mark has talked about the situation with Caden Primo and how awful it was and like manipulative it was at the beginning. Like they told this kid in the NCAA, like you're going to be on the team
Yeah.
next year with Carey Price, and then you're going to be the starter. And then he sat in the American Hockey League for like 3 years or maybe even longer. So it's not like he was put in a great situation. He probably should have stayed developing a lot longer. But as it is now, it's tough.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, should we? I'm just gonna tweet out the link again here, but should we talk about Marty St. Louis and this little stats pack that I prepared? Because I think it's super fun, and I
Yeah.
think everyone's gonna enjoy it. I think we'll find
Absolutely.
out. All right, so
Absolutely.
I'm gonna switch over here to a new scene where this is our three guest scene. So there's two hockey sticks, but in the middle, when it pops on the stream, I'm sure Kay will let me know. But there is a graph of a rolling 10 game average of expected goal share at 5-on-5 for the Montreal Canadiens from 2021-22 under Ducharme all the way to 2 games ago. So the last 2 games are not in this data
Mhm.
set. If they were, you would actually see at the end a significantly stronger uptick in the rolling 10 game averages because they've been playing better. But I want to point out a couple of things on here because as you can see with Ducharme, it's not great, right? Things fell apart right away in that year. They started out better than I think people remember, and then things just didn't go very well. So I want to point out a couple of things. So every point on this graph uh, has 10 games of data in it, right? That's what rolling 10 game average is. So that kind of smooths things out so you don't get the single game outliers that drop things like crazy. So I'm going to add a little arrow here. And this spike in the first season of St. Louis, that's the first 10 games under Marty St. Louis. So they went
Mhm.
from below 40% expected goals to above 50% within 10 games of him taking over. Like I'm sure everybody remembers how hype it was that the Habs were playing really well. And then they drop off right away. They had this
Mhm.
really big new coach bump and everything fell apart and they were as bad as before, maybe even worse. We could talk about the injuries, all that. Yes, absolutely. But they recovered at the end of the season and started playing pretty darn good. And then the next
Mhm.
season, not great, but they were kind of hovering around that like poor team, but not bad team thing until Sean Monahan got hurt. I'm going to put another arrow on there to show everyone. Uh, sorry, one sec. Transition. There we go. Sean Monahan got hurt when the Canadiens were playing relatively decently. And then after he gets hurt, they bottom out to the worst stretch the Canadiens have had over the last
Hell
three
yeah,
years.
buddy. Let's go.
Right? It just falls apart completely when Sean Monahan gets injured in that the game against Vancouver, I think, where he
Yeah.
it might have been
I miss
Calgary
him.
was last game. Yeah, it was. Yeah. So anyway, super interesting because on top of that, uh, the next time that the Canadiens start playing really, really well, which is last season. If you look, there's this big dip in the middle of the season. That's when they traded Sean Monahan at the bottom of that dip. And
Mhm.
then the Suzuki Slav Caulfield line takes over, and that line crushes it for a stretch. And then the injuries hit again, and the Canadiens fade down the stretch. And this season started off on the same trend downwards. But I want to point out one specific thing on this stats pack right now, and that is specifically the overall trend heading into the beginning of this season from the previous season when Sean Monahan got injured. All right, so it's a little bit convoluted here, but stick with me if you can. So this is the trend line that I've just put on screen of where the Habs were and where they were heading into this season. It's actually really, really strong. Like this is a very strong trend line compare like when you account for what the roster looks like and how bad
Mhm.
this hockey club actually was coming out of that 2021 Stanley Cup final run. The amount of players that they lost to injury, not just for a time, permanently. Carey Price, Shea Weber, Paul Byron, just gone out of the lineup forever. Gallagher, a shade of himself for 2 seasons. Like the losses were incredible. Plus, you lose Deneau, you lose Kotkaniemi, you gain Christian
Oh,
Dvorak.
Dunno.
Like things
I like
were
the gaining Christian Dvorak as
so here's a boat anchor. No, I mean he was so injured for so long, right? Like, but the point is, people underestimate how far down the hole was dug for this
Mhm.
team. At the end of that Bergevin era, there were some decent draft picks at the end. But remember, in 2021, there was a stretch where the Canadiens had 2 players on their entire roster that they drafted. One of them was Arturi
Mhm.
Lehkonen, who they traded, and the other one was Michael Pezzetta. Right? When Caulfield got sent down to
Oh.
the AHL for a stretch. So, like, this is a team that was in absolute crisis. They are building in the right direction, and it's easy when the ruts happen to get caught up in the this is bad, this is going off the rails. But I'm asking everyone to look at the whole picture, take a step back. And Marty St. Louis is actually doing a pretty decent job overall. Is it as fast as we want? No. But remember what they're dealing with. And when guys like Ivan Demidov step into this lineup, it changes things.
Oof.
It changes things.
Man, I'm so excited for that.
Me too.
I'm just yeah, it's gonna be so much fun. I think again, like you said with Marty, first of all, I am really I appreciate the graph because I think without the graph, I would have been so lost. I've got that ADHD, got a picture, have something right in front of me. So I
Same.
appreciate that. And it's really interesting because first of all, also, second of all, I can't believe it's been that long since Dom Ducharme. It literally feels like it was yesterday.
I know.
3 years feels like a fake amount of time, but you are right. So yeah, ultimately, in conclusion, what I think is that I get why people are frustrated. I get I've that one episode where and I said this mom and dad are fighting, by which I meant you and Mark were debating the Marty situation. And I found compelling arguments from both of you, but I think that having those numbers just really shows me that like sometimes emotions just get the best of you.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's happening with this fan base right now. People are just miserable. And like you said, I think that has something to do with where we are in the world also.
Yeah.
But yeah.
100%. And frankly, like sports are supposed to make us emotional, right? That's the whole
Yeah.
thing. And that's kind of what I talk about with Game Over, right? Like when the game is emotional, whether it's happy or angry or sad, like we are there with you, right? Like that's kind of the whole concept of this show is we can yes, sometimes be like, "Yeah, we're overreacting a little bit," but also like we feel those feelings too. We don't pretend that we don't. We're not putting up this facade of like, "Oh, I don't care about whatever team. I just like the sport." No, like we care about these players, about this team, about what the crest means, about you, the fans who are everything for us. You know, like we do this because you want to enjoy it, right? This is your time that is your relaxation or entertainment time and you're choosing to spend it with us. That is the biggest goddamn compliment that you could possibly give. And we love it I love every minute that you spend with it. This is the big takeaway for me. But yes, sometimes we get bogged down in the emotion a little bit too much and focus too much on the now when the
Mhm.
overall picture can tell you a bigger story. So like, the main thing to take away with that is like the valleys are getting less deep as the Canadians go
Yeah.
on, and the peaks are consistently getting higher. The overall
Mhm.
trend is a good one. So there's hope. All
Just
right,
to
should we
touch really quickly,
go for it?
just really quickly, I just wanted to mention, the day of, Shea Weber's retirement ceremony or, like, honoring him, not retirement, but honoring him. I don't remember what date that is, but I think it's versus the Columbus Blue Jackets. I will be hosting that, hopefully. And I have something special planned for, I will be spending some time talking about Shea Weber,
Yes.
um, because I've talked a little bit when I initially kind of had my interview. Actually, something I talked to everybody about was I really value story and I value human emotions, and I think he's got a really interesting one in terms of just his narrative. And I'm really excited to share that with you guys. So I just want to I know it's the Columbus Blue Jackets, maybe not the most fun game, but, I will have something entertaining for you, hopefully, if I can get OBS to, work.
Yeah,
Just wanted
we'll
to give that little plug.
we will figure it out for next time. I promise. We won't have to do another close the stream and restart it. But let's get some comments here, Kay, because we got some good
Yeah.
ones. I had another good one from Dublang, our star of the show on their first comment show, I guess. I don't know if you've been here before, Dublang, but we really appreciate you.
They said
'Cause-
they're a lurker, and this is, yeah, I think that's what
Yeah.
they said, they're a
So
lurker earlier.
I guess the takeaway is anybody who's a lurker who wants to join the show and make some commentary, do it because there's no downside. I'm not gonna yell at you for making a comment. I might disagree, but that's fine. Dublang said that there was probably some good picks throughout the Bergevin tenure. There was just horrible development. Feels like the last picks were given a lifesaver. Completely agree. I'm so
Mhm.
glad that you're here. I feel like you're just saying things I want to say. I rang that bell a lot during the Bergevin tenure that development was the big problem. And that's one of the reasons that I believe in this management group so much is that they did focus on development, and
Mhm.
that makes such a big difference.
It really does. I totally agree with that. I think we sometimes I think back to some of the picks we had and the what ifs of it. What if they'd had the help that they needed in terms of just development? It makes me really sad because I think also just from a larger picture point of view, these are people. These are people who have these dreams that have worked hard to make it to the point where they're drafted, and to be put in a position that just doesn't favor them sucks. And then from our team's point of view, of course it sucks. I think that I remember there was some sort of interview or something from someone, which is really a big thing to say. Something from someone somewhere. But someone reliable somewhere mentioned that they didn't even really have much for the team, even the players on the team themselves in terms of helping just day-to-day things, I think if I'm recalling correctly, like,
They didn't even
having
have
like a
food.
yeah, exactly, exactly. So that kind of, that kind of symbolizes it because like, those are the guys on the big team getting that. Imagine what, like, the prospects are having to deal with, so
No kidding. No kidding. Oh my god. Mark Dumont. Who's that? I don't know who this is. Says, was this the best
some
game of
guy.
your was this the best game of Uri Slavkovsky's career? It was pretty up there, but I feel like he had some games last year where he was just crazy. Like I know he had a hat trick at one point, I think against Philly. Am I remembering that correctly?
There was definitely a hat trick,
It was
I
like
can tell
in
you that
April
much.
last year, he had a game where he scored a hattie against someone. Yeah, Philly. He scored the first two goals of the game and then scored the fourth as well in a 9-3 win. The
Jeez.
Canadiens scored 9 goals in a
Who
game
was in
last
net?
year.
Who was
For
in net? Can
for the
you
Flyers,
yeah,
let's
yeah,
see. It was uh, Ivan Fedotov to start. No,
okay,
Samuel Urson to start, and then Ivan
yeah,
Fedotov came in. But
okay.
Urson gave up
If
five
it
on
was hard, I
17.
would've laughed really hard. It would make
Yeah,
me feel really good, but I feel bad for those goalies.
no, yeah. Urson gave up 5 on 17, and then Fedotov came in relief and gave up 4 on 13. So Not the greatest game for the Philadelphia Flyers, but that's okay. It was up there for Slavkovsky. He was really really strong,
Mhm,
really strong.
mhm,
I saw
mhm.
there was a question from Connor Tumulty, actually, our daily news host for Montreal earlier in the show, but I forget what it was. It was actually a good one. So Connor, if you're still here, repost that question again. Uh, Ben says feels like Connor Crisp draft pick in the Bergevin area, the player who showed character by being his team's emergency backup goalie, illustrated their draft philosophy. Yeah, that's true. Very much big guy, does a thing, is gritty. That's who they wanted. I mean, I still remember the Michael McCarron pick. That was, or no, the worst pick of the Bergevin era. I was at the draft in Philadelphia when Braden Point was on the board, and the
Oh,
Canadiens had a
fun.
pick, and they traded up, and I was like, "Oh my god, they're gonna draft Braden Point! This is the best! They're actually gonna trade up and draft the guy that I really, really want." Back when I
Yeah.
knew a lot more about drafts, and they drafted Brett Lernout instead.
You know what? I got nothing.
Yeah,
I tried
exactly.
hard. I got nothing.
Yeah,
There's some great
100%.
questions I saw on the stream earlier, but I am technically having a bad day, so I can't find them. But if anybody had earlier questions, they're welcome to send them in here.
Yeah, for sure. MFM says, I love how regularly they give tools to players when things aren't working or in need of betterment, like Dr. Shot last season or the Face Off Clinic. Yes, this team continually puts in resources where they need them. Like it sounds like we're giving credit for the most basic things, but this was being a Canadiens fan forever, right? It was like watching something
Mhm.
happen. It clearly isn't working, and they're like, I don't know, figure it out.
Oh,
We're
yeah,
not going to bring anybody else in. Come on. At least this organization, like, there's definitely things that they can improve. They're
100%.
one of the worst teams in the league, but they do put in the resources where they need them when they see something's going wrong. And it's a basic thing, but I guess it's something that I've been wanting the organization that I've followed my whole life to do for a very long time. So it's nice to see.
Yeah, I think it's just again, you really just there's when there are so many resources available and you are as team as wealthy as the Montreal Canadiens, if you are not spending money, people should stand outside Jeff Molson's house and pick it. Like, frankly, we should be playing, like, old, recordings of when the Habs actually won cups to be like, "Hey, buddy, remember?" No, but, like, I just think, again, with the money and a GM having understanding that that's something and I wonder actually, to cut myself off as I do, I wonder if Marty also was kind of requesting those. I wonder if, he went to, like, Gorton and Hughes and was like, "Hey, shot coach? Face-off guy?
Could be.
Question mark?"
Yeah. I mean, it does seem like there's, at the very least, Suzuki is very proactive about that stuff, right? If
Mhm.
he sees something to be improved, he's like, yeah, okay, let's do it. But
Yeah.
no matter what, whether it's him leading it or somebody else in the organization, it's good to see it's actually happening. There's a couple questions here. Jean Paul Quenville says Montembeau's workload a concern. I mean, if he has to continually start forever because they can't trust Primo, I guess it becomes a concern.
Yeah.
Matthias says if it's any consolation, 14 teams passed on Cole Caulfield. Yep, 31 passed on Lane Hudson. So you win and you lose once in a while. Um, let's should we probably
Ooh.
close it up here? Okay, is there another question there?
Just really quickly, I wanted to touch on this one, because it's just a little one. Do you think Suzuki left that hat trick, chance to let Anderson get on the board, or was it just a mix-up?
Well, Anderson had a
I think he
goal.
wanted that. I think he
He
wanted that.
he definitely wanted Anderson to get it, and Anderson definitely wanted Suzuki to get it,
Yeah,
and they almost bottled a 2-on-0 empty net
it
breakaway.
was so funny.
So funny. I mean, I guess you can do it in a game like this, but yeah, it was a weird one. Both guys super unselfish. Somebody's got to be selfish though. Got to let Dvorak take it. It worked out in the end. Ben D says with Heineman showing more confidence and Condada needed at C, who sits when Raphael Harvey Pinard and Line A return? I mean, that's a good
That's a
question.
good question.
We'll have to dig in on that on another one because I think it's going to take a few minutes to get through it. But there's lots to talk about with the Canadiens. It's going to be a fun rest of the season, I think, even though the start was really poor. All right, Kay, why don't you close it out on the stream, and we'll say goodbye and see everybody next time.
Sure. So thanks everybody for coming. Thank you everybody for joining us. Honestly, this means a lot to us. This means a lot to me. Even though there were some technical issues, you guys stuck around, and honestly, thank you so much. Um, this was a great game. I was really rooting for a hat trick because it would have been a good omen. I think OBS would have worked if Nick Suzuki had a hat trick. But yeah, thank you everybody for joining us. We will be back next game. I believe it is Mark. Next game, I can't remember who. It's someone. We will be here. That's the thing. We'll be here. Good game or bad game, we're always here to talk to you, talk through it. And just kind of housekeeping, follow me on Twitter at K_IWM. And I am using Blue Sky a lot more, and I am line composition on there. I will type that in chat because I mumbled that. But yeah, follow me. Essentially, I'm trying to build a following. Guys, come on. Don't let
Let's
me
do
down.
it. Everyone follow Kay. If you want, you can open the description of this video or this podcast if you're listening on the podcast, and all of Kay's socials will be in there that you can see. Actually, I don't think the Blue Sky is on there yet, but I will make sure it's there in the description once this video ends, and you can find mine in there as well, and Mark's and Connor's. So
Yes.
from all of us here
I'm
at Game
mostly
Over
kidding,
Montreal,
but also a little bit not.
Twitter's dying. We need some followers. So head on over to the new sites. We're building a company here. We've got to get some engagement. So like the stream, please hit subscribe and get that little dopamine rush as YouTube gives you the animation. We'll see you next time.